3 weeks ago, ArenaNet released an update preview regarding today's balance patch, and I already discussed in detail what will change and how the changes they promised us will actually affect the meta. And today, the patch dropped and they actually changed quite a lot of stuff. But they not only included the changes that they already previewed us, but they also added new changes, and more importantly, and more surprisingly I would add, they also reverted quite a lot of stuff. If you want to know what actually changed and how this will affect the meta, be sure to stick to the whole video. And if you want to see the full analysis of the whole patch with all the changes that actually affect the game, be sure to check out my video from a while ago about the preview, because my comments on that will still be the same, of course. So, the release notes this time, we also get the Festival Super Adventure Box this time, and yeah, nothing crazy about that one. But we got also a lot of changes regarding balance. Here you can only see the changes that they made to the update preview. If you want to see the full update notes, be sure to check out my video about the preview. Today I just want to cover the changes that they made to the original update preview. In general, they changed actually that the Relic of Thorns, which gives you a lot of condition damage, 50 per stack, and I think you could go up to 10 stacks, so that means 500 more condition damage. It's not that easy to get, but it's still quite a lot of condi damage, and they decreased it because it was apparently overperforming in their eyes. I think that's okay. It was a cool relic, and I think it's still worthwhile to run on some builds and some situations, but for the most part I would say I'm not that happy about that. And then Elementalist, they make really big changes to Hammer in particular, and now everything they reverted. What Hammer was actually completely broken in my opinion already, and they wanted to buff it, and they completely changed it, and the skill is unchanged now. So that means that it's just like before. Hammer will be very good in PvE, in solo scenarios, and really good in PvP and World vs. World, but they don't buff it. The only thing that they reduce is the cooldown of Cleansing Typhoon. Okay, that's not changing too much. But then they will actually change Necromancer's training. So the healing output modifier is decreased by 5% in PvP only. What does that affect? It mostly only affects healing Tempest, so support Tempest. And you will see that through the whole changes that they made here, is that they actually want to decrease the amount of tankiness and supports or tanks in PvP in particular actually bring. So it's not for, let's say, duelists mostly, it's more for really supportive specs. Tempest, Chrono, Warrior. Those will get nerfed. You will see that when we get to that, but it's actually crazy how much they want to tune it down. I'm not sure if it will change too much, because if all of them get tuned down quite a bit and somewhat similar, then it's probably not changing too much. But you can see that already 5% shaved off. And then Tempest, Elemental Bastion, let's say, also again from 0.8 to 0.7 in PvP, only the healing power scaling. That's the trait that gives you healing on aura application. That's the biggest heal, I would say, on Tempest overall. So that's a little bit of a nerf, of course, but it's not like completely unplayable because of that. It's just the healing, and the overall sustain is going down. I think that's what they want to achieve with that. Engineer didn't get any changes other than Magnet, so the pull will now also play a sound effect on the target so that you can more easily dodge it, because it's one of the harder skills to dodge if you're new to the game, I guess. So other than that, Engineer stays the same, which is actually interesting, because Engineer, I would say, had quite a lot of impactful changes, and all of them will go through. Then we have Guardian, again, nerfs to Willbender in particular, or Spear, but it will hit Willbender the most, because it's a PvP burst aggressive build, and you will only have one charge of Heal Your Rush, and your symbol will have 5 seconds more cooldown. I think that's definitely fair. It is quite overperforming Spear, but I think Willbender was, even if you compared it to before, not in a absolutely broken spot anymore in PvP, and I would say this definitely brings it even further down. It doesn't mean it's unplayable, not even close, but it's definitely not as broken as it was before, and I would say you might even consider going for Greatsword at this point. I think it's more like a personal taste at this point. By the way, just a few days ago I released the PvP ranked tier list, and this will be affected to some extent by the changes here, but if you want to see the changes that they already made, be sure to check out the ranked tier list, because I mentioned all of that already. And then we have Mesmer. Mesmer was probably the biggest loser in the last patch, and they reverted the Phantasmal Blades change, so that's the biggest nerf to Power Virtuoso. Now unchanged, that means Power Virtuoso is completely fine. and Mesmer in PvP gets nerfed really hard. All of those changes are only in PvP. So you can see Mesmer gets big plus for PvE and World vs. World. Only in PvP, Mesmer, and in particular Chronomancer, support Chronomancer, will get heavily nerfed. So Imaginary Inversion and Mental Collapse are spear skills. This will also hit the Spear Mirage build. I think especially this one is heavily needed. This skill now only stuns with the first impact when empowered. So that means that you can't dodge the stun and still get stunned by it. I think that was one of the most annoying things to have happened with you if you played against the Mesmer. And that's really, really important, I would say. The cooldown increase is nice. And here the healing decrease and the cooldown increase on the 3 skill is also nice. But it's not like absolutely crazy how it's nerfing it. It's just something that is this was needed in the beginning already, I would say. So I would say Spear is now in a better, more balanced spot, but it's still definitely playable. But it's definitely also decreasing the general usefulness of a support with Spear. So maybe you go back to Sword Shield, for example. Singularity Shot justifies of rival, cooldown increase, time warp, duration decrease. Time warp is actually getting so many nerfs over the last time, it's actually insane. From 5 seconds to 3 seconds only. At this point, if you play Chrono, you might even consider going for the Gravity Well, because it's actually 3 seconds only. That's actually such a big nerf. It's almost half. It's crazy. It's still a very good skill, but it's actually crazy. So the build might still be the same, but it's definitely, you know, everything hits Chronomancer, support Chronomancer, so it's definitely not as good anymore. Illusionary Defense reduced the base protection duration from 4 to 2 seconds, so that means it's even harder to upkeep protection on your allies. This trait is when you shatter your F2, you actually get some protection, and it's based on the clones. But it's only the F2 now, and the base protection is now down, so that means that you have way harder time to actually get protection somewhat consistently on your allies. So I think overall, Mesmer, support Chronomancer in particular, got nerfed quite hard. I think it's still very good, but it's definitely not as broken as before. And it's definitely the hardest nerfs regarding supports in PvP, so I think Mesmer might not be the best support in MMO. We'll see how it plays out. I will give you an update on the tier list in a few days. But this is definitely what I just predict. Then we have Necromancer. The biggest nerf was definitely to Spectral Grasp, reducing the range from 1200 to 600, and this is now unchanged, so they completely reverted it. It's completely fine again. Everyone will be happy. I think that was a big uproar in the community that they changed this. Then Ranger, we got nerfed to the Spear in PvP as well. Just damage nerfs. I think Spear was very high damage and is still very good, but it's definitely not as broken as before. It's losing quite a bit of damage on all the spear skills. I think that's fair. I think they want to just tune down the spears, I guess. Then we have Untamed. Again, nerfs to Untamed, especially the elite one, is actually quite hard. Reduced the damage reduction from 50 to 33%. That's definitely something that hits Untamed, but I think still Untamed might be still a very good class to play in PvP ranked especially. And we have Revenant. Revenant again in PvP gets hit quite hard. So Abyssal Blitz, that's the 3 skill on the spear, will now not afflict weakness and slow in PvP and World vs. World. So it's actually quite, you know, the skill is not that strong anymore, especially because the power coefficient in PvP is also down by quite a bit, only a third almost. So it's not as broken anymore, especially in a power build. And then Abyssal Blood, which is the 4th skill, the poison duration and the power coefficient down as well. I think that's not that impactful because the 4th skill was mostly used for the CC, but the 3 skill is actually, especially the weakness and the slow, were really annoying even on a power build. So I would say that's definitely hitting the spear on Revenant. But it's only in PvP or this one in World vs. World, it's not PvE. Vindicator now gives some nice damage buff to PvE. I think that's definitely needed. I think Vindicator, especially as a full DPS build, was very underperforming or very mediocre, let's say, because it's fully melee and doesn't have any CC, so now it's at least getting a bit more damage. I think that's good. I think that might push it up to very high numbers again. Let's see how that turns out. Just some bug fix to Sweeps, nothing else there. And then we get some really good crazy changes to Warrior. So there was absolutely disgusting way to play Warrior with Core Warrior or even with Spellbreaker, with Staff and playing some kind of support or some tanky side noder, with just abusing a lot of healing that the Staff had, and especially the Vigorous Shouts as well. And they just tuned down every single healing power scaling that was in there. And I think that was definitely necessary because it's absolutely insane how much healing you can put out. It was easily doable of 1 million healing as a warrior, which is obviously insane. and in a PvP match, and that should not be the case, so they definitely reduced that as well. I think it's still completely fine. It will be playable after the patch, but it is not, you know, as broken as it was before, and it's just in a better spot. All the supports are now a little bit less sustainy, so you might not play 2 supports in a monthly AT anymore, which is obviously very annoying to play. So I think it's you still want to have a support in a team, I would say, but it's quite open which one. You can play a warrior, you can play a Necromancer, you can play a Tempest, but for the most part I would say they are all 3 going down, and I think overall PvP just got less damage on the Ranger, less damage on Revenant, less damage on Guardian, and we have less healing on Elementalist, Warrior and Mesmer. So I think overall the very overperforming top-end specs in damage and healing got tuned down, so I think that's overall a good change. Everything else, PvE, World versus World, is actually mostly not affected. I would say the only big thing that changed here is probably the Vindicator buff and the not buff to Elementalist Hammer. But other than that, I think this patch is not too crazy surprising, but I would say as a PvP player, you actually get quite a lot of cool changes. So that will shake up the meta, I would say, quite a bit. So let's see how this ages, but thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick analysis. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch and Patreon. Thanks Malice, thanks Lane, thanks Timo, and I hope to see you all in the next video.